It's not really a secret that the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is pretty popular, and is considered by many to be their greatest, if not the greatest album of all time. So many articles have been written, documentaries, remixes, remasterings, and over 50 years later, people still won't shut up about it. But there's another album, one similar in style to Sgt. Pepper, that seems to often be left out of the conversation. Magical Mystery Tour is like the forgotten sister of Sgt. Pepper. They're both concept albums featuring the Beatles in costumes and are heavily influenced by psychedelics, but one is clearly aged better than the other. But why is Sgt. Pepper always outshined Magical Mystery Tour? The track listing of Magical Mystery Tour is pretty great, if not comparable to that of its predecessor. So what's the reason?
Just think about it right now. Everything's okay.
To really understand what made Sgt. Pepper so groundbreaking, we need to take a closer look at the events and the culture climate leading up to the release of the album. In 1966, John Lennon's controversial "bigger than Jesus" comment had blown up in the Beatles' faces, leading to boycotts, death threats, and album burnings. The strain of constant touring had also taken a toll on the group, and soon after the release of Revolver, they took a 3-month hiatus and went their separate ways. It was during that break that Paul came up with the concept for their new album, in which the four of them were no longer the Beatles, but were now Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sgt. Pepper came out in a time when rock music was beginning to be considered more of an artistic genre. For many years prior, rock and roll had been dismissed as controversial music for rebelling kids. But in the 60s, people began to take the genre more seriously, leading to rock-centered magazines like Crawdaddy in 1966 and Rolling Stone in 1967. Sgt. Pepper was also heavily influenced by psychedelic themes and other integral parts of 60s counterculture. The stage was set perfectly for the success of an album like Sgt. Pepper, with memorable songs like With a Little Help from My Friends, Getting Better, Within You Without You, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and great orchestral moments ranging from the beautiful strings and harp on She's Leaving Home to the crazy, chaotic-sounding chromatic scales on A Day in the Life. The Beatles released Magical Mystery Tour in December of the same year as the soundtrack to the film of the same name. The movie is
I was half an hour looking for the sugar.
interesting, to say the least, but despite getting continually bashed by critics, many of the songs on it still remain timeless. For example, Strawberry Fields Forever, I'm the Walrus, and Penny Lane. The bad reviews seem to be proof that Magical Mystery Tour's flaw was in its concept and story, not necessarily its songs, and that takes me to the first issue I have with the album. In my opinion, Magical Mystery Tour just doesn't seem to be as cohesive an album as Sgt. Pepper. The tracks are good, but there's something missing. The album seems like more of a collection of great Beatles songs thrown on a record. While Sgt. Pepper was made to be an experience with well-planned track order, clearly defined start and finish, and a little plot twist at the end, Magical Mystery Tour lacks that cohesive feeling, and you could probably just listen to it on shuffle and have the same listening experience. Even though so many of the songs on the album are iconic, experimental, and groundbreaking, I don't feel that Magical Mystery Tour really changed the way people think about albums, in the same way that Sgt. Pepper continues to this day. However, even though it's already been established that Sgt. Pepper is more important and influential and all that good stuff, I actually find myself listening to and enjoying Magical Mystery Tour more. Yes, Sgt. Pepper is a classic, but I just find Magical Mystery Tour has more enjoyable tracks and I end up coming back to it more often. Maybe it's because I've listened to Sgt. Pepper so many times at this point, but I just don't really feel the need to put it on as often as Revolver, The White Album, or Abbey Road. The replay value seems to have faded over time for me, and hear me out, I think some of the songs in Sgt. Pepper may be a teeny bit overrated. I'm not denying the importance of the album or trying to downplay the good tracks on it, but when it comes to some of the songs, I just don't really feel the need to listen to When I'm 64 for the 64th time. While the concept and execution of Magical Mystery Tour isn't great, I really do like almost every song on that album, so I guess in the end it really comes down to personal preference. It's pretty obvious that Sgt. Pepper is the more memorable and groundbreaking album, but which one do you find yourself listening to the most? Which album do you think has the best replay value? I'd love to hear what you think. Also, just a quick heads up, I've been kind of running out of ideas lately, so if you have any other bands that you like or any topics you might want to hear me talk about, feel free to let me know, and I'll try and make a video about them.